Hello Wargamers, it's me Cam from TableTopBanter, and in today's video we're going to go over a couple of things to get you started in rank and file fantasy games. Okay, so in today's video, obviously, as I said, we're going over some starting points for fantasy games. Now, I myself am from a 40k background. As you all know, I like 40k, I like the sci-fi stuff, and I have done for a little while. I've been playing for a year or so. And so, making the leap over to a rank and file fantasy game was a little bit different. There are quite a few differences in terms of the way you're allowed to set out your army, a couple of terms, the way the game is played. And so I wanted to go over in this video the starter pack of information you might need. The kind of things that are going to put you in the right place to begin with, because I found out a slightly longer, slightly harder way. If I can make your life a little bit easier, then that's good. So, I'm going to start with army composition. Now, army composition is a little bit different in fantasy to the likes of 40k. So in 40k, you've got your HQ, troops, elites, fast attack heavy, lords of war, fortifications. Those are your main slots in a combined arms, for example. Now, in 40k, if you're playing a 4,000 point game, you can just use 2 tactical squads of 5 men at 140 points, and that's fine. The rest can be all decked out. You can play, I don't know, 3 Land Raiders. You can play Terminators and Land Raiders and duplicate those, and you can have the other, 3,760, 860 points knocking around in cool stuff. Now, in fantasy, the way it works is you have lords and heroes as your characters, your HQs. Then you have a core, special, and rare. Now, you have to make up 25% of your army. This is for 9th Age and Old Warhammer Fantasy. You have to make up 25% of your army of a core choice. So you can't min-max in the same way you can in 40k. So you've got to take bigger squads of, I don't know, for me it's Greybeards for my Dwarven Holds army. I am taking predominantly Greybeards with 2-handed axes as great weapons. Now, yes, these are kind of a buff core unit, which I really like, but I have to take core units. Now, the way this makes it slightly more realistic is because I'm not, in a realistic Space Marine army, you're not just going to take 10 tactical Marines split into 2 squads of 5 with, 50 Terminators or with Land Raiders. That's not likely. So it makes you kind of stick to this more realistic army composition. Now, I think no more than 25% can be spent on heroes and lords, because obviously you can't have a one-man army. You can actually make up these characters to be like 400 points a character. In a 2,000 point game, that's kind of not, well, I say not uncommon. It ends up being nearer 300 with the amount of upgrades you can give them. Like my Dwarven King is pretty points heavy because he is a beast. Same goes for my Sylvan Elves Lord. He is going to be a Shapeshifter Lord, and again, that's 300 plus points on one character. Now, obviously in 40k it's a very different system for points, but that's what I'm getting, basically. What I'm trying to say is there's a composition, and it's different to your standard sci-fi game, done on a percentage of where you have to place your points. Which I do like, actually. I think that kind of makes it a slightly more even game. So, once we've obviously found this out and had a look at different units, you might start watching some battle reports, just to get an idea, just to see what you want. Now, in every battle report I have watched, someone has said the word chaff numerous times, mostly every single turn. So, when you're sitting there going, yeah, I know what chaff means, because I have no idea what it means. I am brand new to the game. Now, I'm not saying everyone should explain it in their videos, but that's what this one is for. This one is to explain what chaff means. So a chaff unit is basically one that can redirect and slow down an enemy unit. The best way is for me to try and explain it with an example. So, if I'm playing a game at 9th Age against Harry, and he has a massive, massive block of orcs, and they're quite close to my defensive lines, and I'm playing Dwarven Holds. I've got my cannon there. I don't really want that getting charged, ever. So, to prevent it from getting charged, I place a smaller unit. Let's say it's my attack fighter, I think it is. They have effectively a Dwarven helicopter. So he just pops in front of them, And it means that they can't charge through him, and it's hard to move around him. So they either have to charge into him, in which case you position him in such a way that they can't follow through into the cannon, or they have to not. And he gives them, it basically saves my cannon for a turn, so he can put out more damage. Now, the key things a chaff unit has to be, in my opinion, fast and cheap, because they are not going to kill anything. They are there to be killed and to save the more effective, more expensive units. Now, an army without chaff, basically you have to take the big hits, and you have to be able to take the big hits and really try and get round opponents' chaff. Now, like I said, this is a phrase that's used so often in fantasy battle reports or fantasy battles, 9th Age battle reports, and it's often not explained. So there you go. That is a very key phrase that you'll need to know if you are thinking of getting into fantasy. Another thing to bear in mind is the way everything moves. So in 40k, you can move a model wherever you want, as long as it stays within the 6 inches. Now, in 9th Age, a unit has a movement, or a model has a movement stat, so it can only move that many inches, and it has to move in these blocks of neatly set up guides with wheeling. They can't just move sideways without restricting some of their movement. They can't just walk around a corner without that slowing them down a bit. So it works in this kind of organised rank and file system. So you'll have to get familiar with not just being able to move anything you want everywhere, but instead being kind of more careful with positioning and really trying to, I suppose it's like in boxing, when you're trying to, you sort of shadow box your opponent, you know, you're like, oh, where are they going to go? Where are they going to, what are they doing? You try and get a feel for their movements. That's the kind of way you'll have to play this. I, for one, am incredibly excited to try it out, and I am looking forward to really giving it a good go with Harry. And I'd say those are the 3 big things. Combat is also dealt with early on in 9th Age. You charge, and then you have combat later on. So you can't like shoot and then charge. You charge first, then it's shooting, or then it's magic, shooting, combat. So it's just, yeah, it's a slightly different system. Don't get me wrong, you still roll dice, you still use tape measures, you still have a good laugh with buddies. But if Fantasy Battles 9th Age is something you're interested in, then you're going to need these 3 starter steps, and then you can really go from there, download the rules, have a gander, watch some battle reports for inspiration, and get involved. So I'm going to end this one here. Thank you ever so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave your comments below. Was this remotely helpful? Because I know that I had absolutely no idea about the word chaff at all. And to be quite honest, I didn't 100% know how all the army composition went. I do feel much more comfortable with it now, and that's why I'm sharing it. So yes, thank you ever so much for watching. It's been me, Callan, from TableTopBanter. Don't forget, have fun.